Hey guys, Michael here. Hope that you're all doing great today. So I know that I spend an awful lot of time saying good things about Warhammer 3, and I probably come across as a fanboy much of the time, which, fair enough. When you make videos talking about how everybody else is too negative about a game, because I still think that there's an awful lot of fun to be had in this game, you can certainly get that reputation. Anyway, I do think that to be fair, we need to be critical where it's time to be critical. And I often find myself actually doing the devil's advocate, which is when the rest of the community seems to be going more negative, my instinct is to try to look for the positive. And then vice versa, when I see that the community is going a little bit positive and overlooking some of the things that I think we need to be critical of, I have a tendency to do that. So on that note, I've watched a couple of other YouTubers talking about the some of the recent updates coming out from Creative Assembly, and I just want to throw in my own comments, which is basically I'm more negative than other people seem to be right now about this stuff, about the upcoming changes for Tides of Torment and for things like this Hotfix 3.4, so 6.3.4, excuse me. So here we go again. So I'm going to go ahead and read through some of this stuff, the stuff that I think is important. I'm not going to read through all of it, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But I'm going to go ahead and give you my summary view at the very top before I start going into the specifics, which is I think that all of this stuff here where it says campaign AI updates, all the way down to all the way down to here, right before we get to Hotfix 3.6.3.4 additional fixes. I think this is all smoke and mirrors. I understand some of you have said that you like getting that information. That's fine. I think they're trying to distract people with all of this stuff from the real important thing, which is, to me, the important thing is they are explaining here in great detail what exactly the problem is and what they're doing to fix these specific problems. And what they're not saying is how these problems keep showing up in the game, why their quality assurance process doesn't find it before they release updates to the general public, before they release DLCs to the general public, what they've learned, not in terms of what is causing the specific problem, what they have learned from a big picture to make sure that it doesn't keep happening in the future. We don't hear any of that. So as they explain in all of this detail exactly what is causing all of these particular issues, my reaction to that is, yeah, that's all well and good, but you're not telling me that you've learned anything from this experience to make me think it's just not going to happen again and again and again. To me, the actual patch notes start right here. So we've got some additional fixes and stuff, and this is what I'm actually going to pay more attention to. But I will at least touch on the headings here so that you can get a sense of what all they've changed here. I'll give a link to this page so that if you're interested in more details, you can certainly look it up on your own. But anyway, here we go. Hey folks, we've just rolled out Hotfix 6.3.4 to Total War Warhammer 3. This time around, we focused on 4 key areas of improvement: fixes for idle AI, Chaos Dwarfs not recruiting enough high-tier units, Man-Eater idle issues, and improvements to how the Ogre Kingdom's AI uses camp. By the way, in case you're wondering why I stop right there, it's instinct, because we don't know whether or not the YouTube algorithm, and since I'm such a small YouTuber, I can't really afford to run the risk of my stuff getting flagged. So anyway, improvements to how the AI Ogre Kingdom's AI uses camps. Additional fixes across battle and campaign are also being implemented in this hotfix, which are detailed at the bottom of this blog. Our teams will now switch their focus to readying 7.0 for its release on December 4th, alongside the release of Tides of Torment. We have reserved ample patching time to follow up on any issues we want to address following 7.0's release and before we break for the holidays, but campaign AI will return as a focus for us in the new year. Whilst we've been able to address many of the impactful issues highlighted in recent months, there's more that we want to do, and we'll be looking to return to this topic as soon as we're able. So this is fine. I mean, I appreciate that they are, they're saying we're fixing some things, but there's more that we want to fix. That, perfectly fine with that. At least they're acknowledging, hey, there's still more that we want to do. It's not so much the fact that they have to keep doing these updates. It's the fact that every time they release a new hotfix or release a new DLC or any kind of patching at all, it seems like they're introducing more problems that should have been caught before they did the release. Okay, anyway, we'll share more details on what's coming up after this when we can. And in the meantime, thank you for your patience while we work on maintaining and improving Warhammer 3. Until then, see you on the battlefield. Okay, so campaign AI updates. Like I said, I'm only going to mention the subheadings here. So we've got the overview, obviously. Okay, idle AI is obviously the big thing that they're addressing here. Generating tasks and categorizing them. So if you want to know the minutia of exactly what's working here, then you can go ahead and read this. Recruitment rules for new armies, vampire count specific changes, Chaos Dwarfs, inconsistent high tier unit recruitment, what they've changed. Ogres, let's call him Goldfig Maneater, being too slow or idle, what we changed. Ogre Kingdoms, camps not working well with the AI again. Most of these things, good that they're working on them. It's just not hearing what I want to hear. Okay, anyway, this, like I said, is the actual hot fixes for this update. So we've got fixed an issue where unit recruitment was denied due to insufficient funds, but in reality, due to discounts for bonuses, the unit could be recruited. So I want to use this as an example, and most of these fall into this category. I don't expect a perfect game. I know that there are going to be bugs that creep into the game. And so this is the kind of thing that I expect from a normal hotfix list. And so, these are good. I don't want to have unrealistic expectations. I've mentioned it before. I'll go ahead and just reemphasize this. I used to work in IT for a decade. I supported financial systems where we couldn't have gotten away with the kind of nonsense that's going on here. I realize the world has changed. I realize that the gaming industry is different. I realize that they release games before they're ready. They release games with bugs. And as long as they're patching them after release, then that's sort of the accepted methodology. I get that. I just am coming at this from the perspective of somebody who used to have end users who were very upset when problems crept into a system, and I would have to explain to them not what specifically was the problem in the code. I would have to explain to them that, okay, we've identified it, we've fixed it, we've also identified the problem in our own quality assurance process, and it's not going to happen again. And so it's all of that stuff that I'm not hearing in any of this. Okay, the big name Noblar Kicker correctly unlocks with Noblar Flingers in your army. Oxyotls Inner Sanctum buildings now give the correct benefits. The Dark Elf Diktat Open Markets now shows the correct amount of treasury it gives. Occupying the Oak of Ages as Warriors of Chaos now provides the correct building. If you currently own the settlement as Warriors of Chaos, it will not be automatically be updated. A little bit of redundancy there. So we will need to reoccupy it after losing it to an enemy. Necropolized Knights are not units, so we have fixed up the text so that they now read correctly as Necropolis Knights. Lizardman's Sanctum of Quintex now correctly scales in its faction-wide growth, so it is now 10-15-20 rather than 10-15-10. Krokgar's Unique Saurus Chain now correctly applies the faction-wide recruit rank increase for Scar veterans. Fixed an issue where Orc Boar Boys were not able to be recruited in some instances. Iron Man mode now autosaves when a mission is issued, which will protect progress in multi-stage missions. You may see more autosaving as a result. Fixed missile strength modifiers not being used by auto-resolve calculations. The building Warband Camp no longer provides defensive supplies as was not doing anything. Skull Wand of Kalath can now be equipped by Savage Orc Great Shamans. Cave Painter Follower can now be equipped by Goldfig Maneater, Camp Tyrants, and Paymasters. Resolve the problem with models becoming pixelated when rendered behind a VFX instance. Applies on Ultra VFX detail only as it may impact performance on mid-low range hardware. UI resolved the problem with a missing texture on campaign map overlays in different languages other than English. Fixed 2 occurrences where a C encounter dilemmas would not trigger instantly. Added localizations missing from 6.3.x hotfixes. The AI just refers back to the things that they already talked about. Technology, Vampire Coast technologies now show the same effects for traits as the actual traits. Sequence of the hardened Scales now correctly applies unit mass to Kroxigors. The technology determining the Great Plan now affects the whole province, and we have also made the text clear. Skills and traits. Scylla Angfengrim, I always have a hard time pronouncing that, can now scout ruins. Hideous Visage trait provides fear as well as terror. The second level of the Word of Pain skill for Lords now gives an increased cooldown reduction, as does the third level for the hero version. The trait Wayfarer no longer shows Strider twice. The Blessing of Itzel skills now correctly apply to Troglodyte units. The trait Kassar Headman now affects the units and characters it should. Yuan Bo no longer has hidden effects in his skills, which reduce all resistances for enemies in the local region. The skills traits below now affect the province with their corruption reducing effect, irrespective of if they own it or not. That would be the Beloved of Asaph, Sigmar's Will, Honorable and Pure, the Evergreen, Hunter of Nightmares, and Blessed Holy War. Fixed the melee-only version of Weapon Master trait not appearing correctly in the UI. This trait is currently only available to Vampire Counts, Slaanesh, and Khorne characters. Khalida can unlock Unbreakable from her capstone personal skill Warrior Queen. We have therefore subbed out Indomitable for Tenacity. If you have put skill points into Indomitable, they will be lost. Apologies. That actually impacts me because I'm playing the Khalida campaign right now. The Night Goblin Shaman skill, Extra Sneaky Stabber, now grants Unspottable, as Stalk is something they have innately, and the icon for Unspottable being granted by an effect now shows correctly. Bruisers now have the trait Disciplined available to them like other Ogre characters. Dragon-blooded Shigingen Yang Lords can now start with Irascible, Lettered, and Upright traits. The Unearthly Reflexes trait now provides minus 20% Vigor loss reduction. Battle. The pattern on Dark Elf robes is back to being gold as it was in Warhammer 2. Fixed an issue with the trajectory of Blessed Ancient Salamander shooting attack. That's one that I feel like they could probably look at a lot of other units as well. Fixed an issue where both Ancient Salamander variants didn't calculate their target's trajectory when shooting, resulting in missing most moving targets. There's so many issues with shooting, with missile units in general. I'm glad that they're addressing this. I hope they're looking at others. I'm going to lead to my final point here when we finish all this. Fixed an issue causing a lack of vegetation on Thorax Quest Battle of the Lost Vault. The map is green and luscious once again. Abilities. The ability The Spirit of Gork or Mork now correctly applies to summoned units such as reinforcements. And units, finally. Black Orc Penetration Resistance now matches other Orc units. Blades of the Blood Queen, Harganeth Executioners now have the correct melee attack. Fixed visible gap in the model around the loading mechanism for the Hobgoblin Bolt Thrower. The Cockatrice, when playing as Beastman, now has a 2D porthole. Land ship units now have the Wounds ability to match other single entity units. The Imposter LOD for Salamander Hunting Pack now shows faction colors. That's all for Hotfix 6.3.4. As always, if you run into any new issues after updating, please do let us know in our dedicated bug reporting subforum. Okay, and we'll be back very soon with more news on Tides of Torment and Update 7.0, so keep an eye on our community channels for the latest info. All right, so back to this and my last final point. Like I said, a lot of these problems are the sort of things that I expect a hotfix to address. However, having said that, over and over again, I don't ever see them mentioning, well, I shouldn't say it, because I think they've acknowledged it from time to time, but I don't get any sense that they're working on fixing all of the other problems with missile units, line of sight issues, pathfinding, when there's like any particular reason why they can't shoot right away, or even if there doesn't seem to be a reason why they can't shoot it right away, they'll just start running straight towards their target. There's countless things having to do with missile units that need to be worked on. There's, of course, the gate bug. There's all kinds of pathfinding in siege maps. I have from the Ikaclaw campaign just yesterday, attacking a walled city where I turned AI control, one of our armies over to AI control, and half the units stood around not doing anything. I mean, there's just a lot of issues like that maybe they're not aware of them. Maybe they're just considered low priority. To me, I mean, things like this are important to fix. The AI is important to fix, but come on. I mean, there's things that affect literally every single campaign that are, that are really, I would have to think high priority problems. That gate bug has got to be a high priority problem for them. So I don't know. I'm not suggesting that everybody go bombard their bug reporting sub forum, but we need to let them know that some of these things really do need to get worked on. It gets a little exhausting seeing all their time being spent on new DLCs and reworks and AI and things like this, all of which are important. Don't get me wrong, but without getting any acknowledgement of some of the really major issues that are in the game that that I think should be even more important. All right, anyway, that's my 2 cents. So I realize this kind of went a little bit longer than I expected it to. I apologize for all that, but that's why I put the summary in the very beginning. All right, anyway, please, as always, let me know your thoughts. Give any feedback you want to in the comments below. Just keep it civil, and I'll go ahead and say thanks everybody so much for watching and listening, and I will see you all in the next video.